Welcome. Today, we're exploring a truly provocative and intensely debated book, Michael Anton's The Stakes: America at the Point of No Return.
Right. Anton, former national security official, presents this really stark vision of where America is heading.
Arguing from his perspective that we're at a critical juncture. It's that Flight 93 election idea he brought up back in 2016.
Exactly. And his core argument is that America's facing these deep, maybe even existential questions.
He weaves together a lot of threads: social, economic, political trends.
To build this case for what he sees as a kind of semi-permanent shift in power. So today, we'll dig into that core thesis
We'll use his big case study to see how he illustrates his points.
and then look at his wider critiques of American governance, American society as a whole.
And our mission for you is to give you a clear, concise handle on Anton's diagnosis, what challenges he sees, his arguments for them.
And crucially, what he thinks might happen next, the possible futures, or maybe a path he sees towards realignment.
So let's get into it, why he thinks the stakes are just so incredibly high. So that central idea I mentioned, the Flight 93 election. Every election feels like this now, he says. What's he actually mean by such a loaded term?
Well, Anton uses Flight 93 election as a metaphor to suggest America's at this point where, one wrong move, one wrong political choice,
Could lead to something irreversible.
specifically what he calls a semi-permanent democratic leftist rule.
Which would mean the end of national elections as we know them, fundamentally changing the country.
Pretty much, yeah, that's the core of the Flight 93 idea. So given that danger as he sees it, what are the options? He outlines two paths forward.
Right. Two main outcomes he lays out to avoid the country's demise.
What are they?
What he sees as a final win for the left, leading to a sort of one-party system where really only Democratic primaries count.
And the second.
The second is a major political realignment, led by a nationalist populist Republican Party, or maybe some successor party,
And the goal of that realignment.
to force the left to moderate, he argues, to bring back what he calls real politics, with compromise, legitimacy. He basically presents these as the only two choices left. Now, to make his case about the whole nation, he zooms in on California, calls it a kind of prophetic case study.
He does. He remembers the California dream from when he was young, this middle-class paradise.
But now, his words, a woke feudal dystopia. That's quite the description. How does he get there?
He argues this massive shift happened incredibly fast, like barely one generation. And he points to several interconnected things driving it.
Okay, like what?
First off, what he sees is just sheer overpopulation and crowding.
Right, the official number is huge, nearly 40 million.
Yeah.
But he thinks it's actually more.
He says the real number is almost certainly higher. Mostly, he claims, because of illegal immigration, which makes accurate counts really difficult.
In the density?
He notes that, 2/3 of the population are packed into that narrow coastal strip, less than 15% of the state's land.
Making it effectively super dense.
Yeah, second densest in the nation, he figures, right behind New Jersey, in practical terms.
And then he connects that density to what he describes as crumbling public services and some pretty alarming public health issues.
He does. He talks about the roads, once these engineering marvels, now just riddled with potholes from overuse.
But he goes further, doesn't he? Some controversial claims about sanitation.
Very controversial. He claims large areas in SF and LA have public sanitation issues, levels he compares unfavorably to slums in Calcutta.
Wow. And he links that directly to diseases.
He does. Cholera, typhus, things we thought were long gone.
Yeah.
And he points fingers, like at DHS of Boudin, for not prosecuting quality of life crimes.
Yeah.
He sees it as a systemic failure. And that ties into his next point, which is about personal safety. He details a significant spike in crime.
Right. He mentions the decriminalization of theft under $950. What does he say the impact was?
He links it to a 12% jump in violent crime between 2013 and 2017, and he says it's still going up.
Even in rural areas?
Apparently so. He cites sources like Victor Davis Hanson saying there are surges even there, and maybe 3/4 of crime isn't even reported because people feel the police won't act.
He then broadens this out to what he calls prejudicial policies or even anarcho-tyranny. What's that about?
He's arguing that laws, both civil and criminal, are enforced in a spectacularly unequal way.
How so?
Well, for example, he claims state law also doesn't really apply to many immigrants, especially undocumented ones. He thinks officials have sort of given up on even enforcement.
He gives an example, right? The San Francisco shooting case.
The acquittal of a man deported 5 times, a career criminal who shot someone. Anton claims the elite outrage only came when Trump objected to the verdict.
And he also brings up sanctuary cities.
He notes California pioneered them, then became a sanctuary state, which was just openly flouting federal law. And Anton then connects these kinds of policies to their impact on basic institutions, education.
California schools used to be top tier, didn't they?
Among the best, yeah. Now he says they rank 38th. And he attributes this decline mainly, well, he called it demographic change fueled by poor people fleeing poor countries.
He says that's the single biggest factor, but no one dares name it. That's a strong claim.
It is, and it's worth noting many other analyses point to very different factors. Funding issues, curriculum, teacher shortages, many things.
Anton focuses on demographics.
He also criticizes the UC system for aggressively recruiting out-of-state and foreign students, like 27,000 from China one year, paying full tuition.
He sees that as prioritizing money over Californians.
That's his take, yeah. Revenue over residence.
He also uses this striking phrase, the societal reverse mortgage. What does he mean by that?
It's his way of saying, basically, that the current or older generations are cashing out the state's accumulated wealth and opportunity.
Liquidating the past to fund the present.
Yeah, he implies, at the expense of the future. The old California dream detached house, sunshine that's gone, he says.
So what's the new dream then?
He paints this picture where it's about selling grandma's house, bought for maybe $60K in the 70s, for like $1.6 million now to fund retirement.
And who owns the multi-million-dollar homes now, in his view?
He points to tech lottery winners, sure,
Mm-hmm.
but also significantly foreign buyers, Russian oligarchs, Gulf sheikhs, Chinese kleptocrats.
Buying properties all cash, sight unseen.
Yeah, driving prices even higher, making it impossible for ordinary people. That's his picture. So wrapping up his California analysis, how to get here, he boils it down to 4 overlapping causes.
Okay, what are they?
1, a huge influx of poor immigrants, particularly from Latin America, especially post-86 amnesty. He claims border enforcement was willfully ignored. 2, what he calls woke anti-assimilationism, replacing the melting pot idea with a salad bowl, actively discouraging a common identity. 3, massive demographic shifts that he argues guarantee one-party rule, making votes from conservative parts of California irrelevant.
Then the last one.
4, the rise of this oligarchic power, big tech, big Hollywood, creating this insulated, exclusive paradise for elites who don't feel the dysfunction, living in clean, pristine space stations, as he puts it.
It's a really potent and, disturbing picture of California. And then he takes these specific points and broadens them out. He argues these aren't just California problems, but that foundational American principles are eroding nationwide. Where does he start that argument?
He goes back to the American founding, to the core ideas.
Like human equality and natural rights.
Exactly. Rights people have, just by being human, given by God in nature, inherent, unalienable. The government's job, in this view, was protection. Treat people equally before the law.
Not equal outcomes, but equal treatment under law.
Right. And he stresses civic nationalism, not based on ethnicity or religion, but shared principles, mutual consent, that common American identity.
He contrasts this with other historical ideas.
He brings up John C. Calhoun, the pro-slavery theorist, who called all men are created equal and pushed for group rights over individual rights.
And progressivism, too.
He argues progressivism dismissed natural rights for historical progress, denied a fixed human nature, pushed for rule by experts, not the people, leading to a kind of moral relativism.
So, fast forward to today. How does Anton see these ideas playing out? He says the government is now trying to make people equal.
That's his critique. He points to what he sees as the transformation of civil rights. It used to be about removing formal barriers, right?
Equal opportunity.
Now, he argues it's shifted to demanding equality of outcomes between groups, driven by ideas like justice is fairness, social justice. He mentions John Rawls.
And the implication of that shift for Anton.
He claims it implies that any disadvantage must be caused by oppression, structural or even subconscious oppression.
Which then requires unequal treatment under the law to achieve equal outcomes.
That's his interpretation. And he says it's often justified with phrases like diversity is our strength.
Okay, so if the goals have shifted, who does Anton think is actually running the show? He argues popular consent, democratic accountability are way down.
First, he says dependence on the people is undermined. Mass immigration, which voters never consented to, has transformed the electorate and essentially voided their votes.
That's a huge claim. What else?
Then there's rule by experts, big decisions made in rarefied settings, universities, boardrooms, and if you question it, You're treated like a petulant child.
What about the structure of government, separation of powers?
He sees the administrative state, the bureaucracy, as an unconstitutional fourth branch, acting without real political oversight. Unelected bureaucrats become the real legislators.
And the courts. He has a term for that too, right?
Rule by judges.
Yeah.
He argues judges improperly block legal executive actions, use sophistry to things like Obamacare or racial preferences, and even take over executive functions through consent decrees, like setting immigration policy.
It sounds like a system he sees as deeply corrupted. He talks about a pay-to-play dynamic.
He does. He claims it affects everything. He gives the example of the Sierra Club changing its immigration stance, he alleges, after a big donation from a woke billionaire.
Universities taking foreign money.
Yeah, from rivals like China, Confucius Institutes, professors arrested for espionage. He basically says the whole idea that the federal government is incorruptible, that's been blown out of the water.
Citing things from the Trump years.
Like intelligence agencies spying on Americans. The Michael Flynn case, where the legal process itself was the punishment.
And this leads to unequal justice.
Complete freedom for the favored, vindictive enforcement for the disfavored. He uses the Jussie Smollett case as an example initially cleared because of group disadvantage.
While critics of things like stop and frisk get attacked, even if the policy reduced violence.
Right. He calls this whole situation meta-corruption. Government, elite institutions, no longer serving the common good, just their own narrow sectarian interests.
So if the foundations are eroded and power is concentrated like that, Anton then looks at the voting process itself. He argues the electoral system is being manipulated.
He does, yeah. He sees a deliberate effort at electoral system manipulation.
Through things like mail-in voting, voter laws.
Even attacking election security measures, he sees a pattern.
He highlights ballot harvesting specifically, doesn't he, in California?
Yes, legalized there in 2016. He claims harvested ballots were decisive in flipping several Republican districts in Orange County.
And the ultimate goal, in his view,
The Electoral College. He argues Democrats know if they can get rid of it, they'll never lose another presidential election.
alongside manipulating the vote, he talks about manipulating information, propaganda and censorship. His narrative, megaphone, and muzzle idea.
Right, the narrative is the big story the elites want everyone to buy into.
The megaphone is how they broadcast it. Media, schools, social media.
Exactly. And the muzzle is how they shut down disagreement, deplatforming, cancel culture, all that.
He traces this back to academia.
He claims sociology departments redefine racism, so only people in a position of power could be racist, meaning, in practice, only white people.
He names specific figures.
Nola Gandeev, who talked about abolishing the white race. Ta-Nehisi Coates on structural racism.
And he sees things like fact-checking as part of this system.
He argues they're often biased tools used to push the narrative and shut down other views, often working hand in glove with social media censorship.
He has another term, too, the celebration parallax.
Yeah, that's his term for what he sees as a glaring double standard, where certain speech or actions are celebrated for one group but condemned for another.
This whole dynamic, the manipulation, the censorship, it has serious implications for internal security. He says dissidence equals terrorism.
He calls it a potentially sinister manifestation of the muzzle. He claims intel and law enforcement are increasingly lumping white nationalists, even nonviolent ones, in with foreign terrorists like ISIS.
While groups like Antifa get a pass.
He provocatively describes Antifa as America's most violent domestic terror group, but says they're often allowed to run amok because their violence serves the narrative.
So law enforcement targets dissenters instead of actual violence.
He argues they're tempted to target nonviolent dissent under the guise of stopping violent extremism, leading to the situation he describes as leftist violence speech is violence.
Okay, so after all that critique, who exactly are these rulers or overlords? What does he think they really want?
He makes this distinction. The country class, ordinary Americans versus the overlords, the ruling elite.
And this elite class, is it hereditary now?
He claims it's increasingly so. Smart marrying smart, creating a narrow caste, concentrated in blue enclaves, coastal cities, rich suburbs, Ivy League schools as the pipeline. He describes them as often above average and conformist.
And their ultimate goal?
He argues is to transform the U.S. into a kind of deracinated economic administrative zone, basically stripping away national identity, ultimately aiming for a universal and homogeneous state.
How does he think they maintain power to pursue that goal? He lists some tactics.
The one he calls high plus low versus middle. The idea is the ruling class partners with lower economic groups against the middle class.
Squeezing the middle through taxes, outsourcing immigration.
creating a free-stuff constituency dependent on debt and redistribution.
He has a more controversial point, too, about pacification.
He suggests things like widespread porn and drugs, plus cheap consumer goods bought on credit, are used to keep the population passive. Fat, ill-nourished, out of shape, stoned, and hence
Yeah.
no threat.
And historical revisionism.
Right. Using the education system to teach kids to hate their country, its history themselves. Saying America was founded on slavery, all achievements stolen.
The purpose being demoralization.
Exactly. Making people less fit for and capable of liberty, in his view.
Now, mass immigration seems absolutely central to Anton's entire argument about how America is being transformed. What are his key points here?
It really is central. He cites a figure since 1965 immigration reforms. At least 59 million newcomers, maybe 90 million with descendants. He calls that scale unprecedented in human history.
And he questions the reasons given for it.
He does. He separates the motivations. For the elites, the oligarchs, he argues immigration means a bigger consumer market, cheap labor, higher corporate profits. It benefits businesses, banks, affluent city dwellers who get cheaper services and higher property values.
And for the left, what's their motivation?
For the left, he claims, mass immigration is just good, period. It makes America less racist, more diverse, helps atone for past sins. He quotes author Suketu Mehta saying, "It's our country now."
What about native birth rates and all this? Does he connect the two?
He sees a paradox. He argues this neoliberal far-left alliance pushes for immigration while simultaneously discouraging native births by promoting endless education, careerism, consumerism, late marriage, and pushing overpopulation fears, but only focused on the developed world.
So what are the political results of all this immigration in Anton?
He argues it's the single most important tool for Democratic politicians, creating an electoral lock.
Because newcomers vote Democrat.
They overwhelmingly vote for left-of-center and/or outright leftist parties, guaranteeing a durable Democratic majority.
And the Republicans.
He calls them the stupid party for not getting it, for serving donors, he claims, instead of their own voters who actually favor immigration restriction.
Okay, so Anton paints this picture of decline and manipulation. He doesn't just leave it there, though. He outlines some potential futures for America, pretty stark ones.
Several possible paths if things keep going as they are, or if the country fractures.
What's the first one? The most likely, he thinks.
Neoliberalism forever. Basically more of the same. The high-low coalition against the middle, more financialization, more tech dominance, rising inequality, falling wages.
Eventual socialized medicine, but with declining quality.
Yeah, and mass surveillance, government tech censorship collaboration getting much, much worse. By orders of magnitude, he says.
Which could lead to saying goodbye, Constitution.
The Constitution increasingly attacked as racist, oppressive, ignored in practice, maybe eventually abolished formally or informally.
Then there's elective monarchy. What's that?
He means the real choice of president happens behind closed doors, among a few Democratic elites trading favors. Elections become just for show, like Senate votes in Imperial Rome. He mentions the Tirana Index here, that measure of fake democracy in one-party states.
Leading to actual one-party rule.
Right, which then erodes legitimacy, makes mistakes because there's no real criticism, breeds discontent that needs suppressing. He notes the ruling class seems out of touch with huge parts of the country.
What about Brazilification?
That's the idea. America becomes a lower trust, less cohesive, more dysfunctional place, no longer a great power, maybe even dependent on China.
He even mentions secession.
He explores it. Maybe the left secedes if a rightist wins, or the right secedes if they feel permanently outvoted. He talks about red state banlieues, red areas just ignoring federal authority, or redrawing state lines like parts of Virginia joining West Virginia.
And finally, Caesarism. A strong man.
A leader rising above the broken system. Could be a blue Caesar using the bureaucracy against the right, or a red Caesar unifying a threatened right. He warns an ideological Caesar would be crueler, more destructive of history and culture.
He frames all this using Machiavelli's cycle of regimes.
Right, seeing America descending from democracy towards decadence, anarchy, and then tyranny. He sees a broader civilizational self-loathing and loss of faith in the West.
Given that dire outlook, does Anton actually offer any way out? He mentions needing a political realignment.
He does offer a path, yes. He thinks the only way forward is to build a durable governing coalition, something that can win maybe 55% of the vote for a generation.
A bipartisan realignment, maybe, pulling working class voters from both sides.
That's what he suggests might be best for today's problems. But he puts the onus mainly on the Republican Party. It needs, in his view, a massive transformation.
Becoming what?
More worker-friendly, more focused on wage and wealth inequality, openly nationalistic on economics and trade, but stalwartly traditional on morality and culture. A very specific mix.
Okay, so what would the actual platform of this transformed party look like, according to Anton?
He sketches it out across several areas. On the economy, boost domestic manufacturing, create tangible jobs, raise wages, protect U.S. industries.
Does he acknowledge this needs government intervention?
Yes, explicitly. It's
Oh.
a shift away from pure free markets, pure information service economy focus. On debt, he says manage it long term. Don't try to fix it all at once with austerity.
What about energy and environment?
Boost American energy, including nuclear. Keep prices competitive. Protect the environment by having less immigration, which means less consumption.
Healthcare.
A national public plan for major stuff, big injuries, diseases. But keep a lightly regulated private market for routine care, letting insurers price risk.
Civil service reform.
Restore merit-based hiring and promotion. Reverse policies aimed at ending discrimination, which he claims actually reduced competence.
Family policy.
Encourage marriage, family, fertility through policies and pro-family messaging. He points to Hungary as an example where he thinks this has worked.
Law and order.
Enforce the law, prosecute real crimes, but make sure law enforcement isn't used to harass ordinary, decent citizens.
And civil rights. This seems crucial given his earlier points.
A return to strict equality before the law and neutral, fair treatment for all. Explicitly forbid quotas, preferences, diversity as an end in itself.
Though he mentioned a possible exception.
He admits, maybe for descendants of American slaves. He also wants a partial restoration of freedom of association.
And foreign policy.
Define American interests narrowly. Project strength where needed trade routes, economic interests, but stop being the world's arbiter intervener of first resort. It includes rethinking the relationship with Russia.
And one last piece of his solution. The need for a new elite. Where does he think they'll come from, if not the Ivy League?
Not the Ivy League, he says. He praises places like Hillsdale College, suggests founding new conservative universities and grad schools.
And he has a direct challenge for current conservatives.
Yeah, he tells red state grandees, anyone unhappy with the current elite, get involved, run for office, lead.
He also says something pretty radical about the Constitution, doesn't he? For conservatives.
Extremely provocative. He tells them they need to realize the Constitution is not the highest thing. It's a means, an important one, but a means. The people are more important than the Constitution, he says, which exists to serve the people.
And that idea about redrawing state lines again.
Right. He suggests that peaceful rearrangement of boundaries within states, like the Virginia-West Virginia example, could actually improve civic harmony, extend the republic's life, maybe even redraw lines specifically with Senate balance in mind to prevent total dominance by either side.
So that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Michael Anton's The Stakes. We've covered his stark warning, his deep dive into California as a case study, and his comprehensive vision for a potential realignment. It's definitely a challenging book, a real no-holds-barred perspective.
Absolutely. Anton basically argues a thing that can't go on forever won't. Now, whether you agree with his diagnosis or his proposed cures, well, that's another question. But this exploration really highlights the profound issues Anton believes America is facing about its identity, its governance, its whole future direction.
And it leaves us with a final provocative thought from Anton himself. He suggests we might be near the bottom, the ultimate depth of a political cycle, after which things have to start rising again. So the question for you, the listener, to ponder is, what would it really take in Anton's framework for America to begin that ascent? And maybe more importantly, how would we even know if it had started?